So just wanted to say morning, everyone, again. Today's focus is probably going to be about 40 minutes. And today's focus is going to be sort of HR related questions. So we've got Heidi, who is a HR consultant for View HR. And then we've got our own Laura Stead, who's our head of HR. And then we've also brought Chris Wilkins in again, who's a certified chartered accountant, who's, like I said earlier, just a fountain of knowledge. So he's always great to have on these. So you guys, it's just your opportunity to ask the questions that you have, any concerns or anything like that, and hopefully these guys can help answer those for you. So who wants to start?
I've got a question out of curiosity. I can't work out in my own little head why the government would want people on who's on furlough to down tools and not kind of keep active. Surely the more active people are, even though they might be getting some support from the government, you know, the quicker they can, you know, sort of bounce back and, you know, start contributing back to the economy. I just wondered kind of what the thought process was behind that. Good question.
In terms of downing tools, do you mean not working, or do you mean
they're kind of prohibited, aren't they, of actually sort of doing anything, which for me kind of sounds, you know, if they could continue over the 8 weeks or whatever it might be, surely then, you know, the flywheel is going to start moving again much quicker than having to start cold.
Yeah, and I cannot for the life of me give a positive response in terms of what the government is thinking on any day. Sometimes that's a difficult thing for any of us to understand. But I think from what I can understand, the furlough program was initially created to cover those industries that could not work. So, you know, it was no kind of coincidence that it was announced the same day that the pubs closed. So obviously the pubs are closing, the restaurants are closing, and therefore they are imposing a shutdown where we cannot socialise and be within close distance of each other, which I think we all understand the rationale for that. So that was the main reason that the furlough programme was created. But then actually, as they started looking at the epidemic and how it would transition, it became really important for them to say, right, well, actually, this is open to other businesses, and actually any non-essential activity, it's probably best if we don't undertake that, and we then have to provide some form of financial support for those businesses that can't. And then actually what happens, and I don't know if this is something about the great British public, but as soon as the pubs shut, the world shut, as far as the UK was considered. So actually many more businesses found a significant decrease in activity, and the quicker the decrease in activity, the quicker the revenue dried up, and therefore the more furlough activity from the 1st of April. I think we deal with about 180 clients. About 80% of those clients have furloughed their staff as of 1st of April, because there is no money coming in, and therefore if they've got the opportunity to reduce their outgoing to manage the income, then that's why the furlough scheme has taken off to the extent that it has. I don't think the government quite predicted that it would be so required as of April, and some businesses are increasing their production. Obviously we've seen food business and some of the manufacturing industries that are able to support core activity, but for 90% of us, there is no work coming in, and therefore for us to be able to furlough our employees is a business saving opportunity, really. I don't know if that answers your question.
The idea is that we're not allowed to work. People aren't allowed to work where they're on furlough, right? That's the principle behind furlough.
Yeah.
It was because
contribution to the income of the business during the period they're in furlough.
I think
which is Gareth's point, right? Which seems a bit ludicrous.
Yeah. Can I say? I think it started off as it was an alternative to redundancy. Yeah. Which is why it started off. So you had to obviously prove there was no work in order to put on the scheme. I think the government have seen over time that that's not entirely the way it's been used, and are supportive of people actually using the scheme as long as they can show there's been a decrease. Why we can't work as well, I don't know. I think it's a mixture of those reasons, that it was due to be a kind of alternative to redundancy. You can volunteer for the company, and you can, as long as you're not generating income or providing a service. But you can.
When you say providing service, I mean, you know, I'm just about to. We from Monday, we're furloughing half of our staff. So it's the first time we've done it. We've kept going until now, and then we're going to furlough half the staff on Monday. My understanding was that there was no. They couldn't do any work, any work that would generate income. But when you're saying they can volunteer, so I mean, you know, essentially we're furloughing 4 administrative staff. So can they continue to work?
No,
right.
So
okay. That's
no
our understanding. Just
no directed. Sorry, Laura. No directed activity. So in terms of tasks that you would need them to do, you can't say, right, while you're not working, can you just undertake these things for me? But if they choose to go and undertake some activity on their own back, then that would technically be classed as volunteering. So if you're checking your emails or keeping in touch with your customers or those kind of things that aren't directed activity and aren't directly linked to revenue generating activity, that would be classed as okay, because you're kind of just ensuring the continuance of your business, really.
So like admin jobs, things like that, Heidi?
Well, so there's a in order to keep the business running, even if you're a director, you can furlough yourself as a director of the business, but you are allowed to undertake activity that is legally required to keep the business operating. So your monthly accounts, any kind of legal implications, you're allowed to work to undertake those essential activities in order for your business to continue running. But I think it's this essential activity piece. If you're just kind of doing stuff because you want to, that's not essential. So the idea behind it, like Laura said, is because you are either you have no work and you have no revenue coming in, and therefore the business would likely be making redundancy if it wasn't for this furlough scheme. So it's to protect the employment, really.
Can I just say, Mike? Oh, sorry. Can I just say, just with that as well, they are allowing people to basically rotate furlough as well, leave. So it's minimum 3 weeks. But if you've got administrators, for example, you could have maybe one of them on at a time.
Yes,
so
we've done that.
3 weeks, and then swap them around the next 3 weeks and swap them around again. So
I think that's the process. That's the approach that we're going to take, at least in the short term. Is obviously we're hoping that 3 weeks, and we might start to see some kind of normality come back. I'm not really confident of that, but I have to remain hopeful. So can I ask another question about holiday, and what furloughing does to holiday entitlement? And we're just about to. We have a part-time member of staff. She works 18 hours a week, and she was due to go on holiday on Monday for 2 weeks. But she's also part of this team that are going to be furloughed. So I wasn't quite sure what we should do about that, whether we should make her take her holiday for 2 weeks and then put her on furlough, which seems a little bit unfair, but that's an option. And for some of the staff who may be on furlough, let's take a worst case scenario and say, let's say 3 months. What impact does that have on their holiday allowance? That's the question.
Well, I'll take the one with the clear answer first, if that's all right, and then I'll go to the really ambiguous. Everyone's saying something different, and there's no clear answer for the second one. So the clear answer is that whilst you are on furlough leave, you accrue your holiday as normal as you were working. So if you're on sorry, the challenge is my 3.5-year-old Black Panther today is hanging out with me. Can you just go and get Jess to help, darling? Always when I'm talking, that's why I'm muting in the background. Apologies for that. They say maintain professionalism whilst you're at home. Impossible. So you continue to accrue your holiday as per normal in your furlough period. So if you're off for a month and you're accruing, like normal, it'd probably be a day and a half, 2 days per month, depending on the number of hours worked, that continues to accrue as normal. The more challenging part of that question is, do you get them to take holiday? Can they take holiday? And should you be asking them to take holiday?
Can I just start? Because the problem obviously is, if they're off for 3 months, then they come back to work in 3 months' time, and then by the end of the year there's going to be more and more time out of the business. So that's the issue, isn't it?
So you need to think about policies then, I guess, now about, do we allow people to carry over more holiday than they normally would, or pay for holiday if as long as they've taken their statutory amount still. So you probably need to think about that in terms of how do we manage all this leave that everyone's going to have with the last half of the year. So.
What was that? Okay, sorry. Yes, okay. So it's essentially looking at contracts effectively.
So the government have put an amendment to the Working Time Directive so that people can carry over holiday for up to 2 years. So the holiday allowance, you don't have to use it or lose it in this year. So up until 2021, they can carry over from this year to 21 and then from 21 to 22. So even with the statutory requirement for the 20 days, I think they're going to be a little bit loose around that for this year to say that actually you don't even have to allow them to take all of that time. So it gives you a bit more time. And also you are able to manage the way that they take that holiday. So you could say, right, Friday afternoons are quiet, therefore take holiday every Friday afternoon between now and Christmas to use that holiday up. You can have some form of direction on how they take that holiday.
Okay.
They need to be able to be allowed to kind of choose their 20 days in a year.
Yeah.
But anything over than that you offer them, you can direct how they take that. But also in this year, I still think you'll be able to give a little bit of direction on how they take it, or say, actually, you can't take it in these months. These are our core months when we come back, or you can't take it in this week because this is the first week back. So I think you can be more directive of how you take it. The really challenging part of that question is actually whether you can take furlough leave whilst you're on holiday. And there is no clear guidance on that as yet. And some employment solicitors are saying, yes, you should take it. Some employment solicitors are saying, no, you don't take it because you're already on leave. So how can you take leave when you're on leave? So we are advising our clients to not enforce people to take leave on furlough because basically you're double leave. But some employment solicitors are saying that you should. So that's a bit of a grey area.
Can you say that again? Because I was a bit lost by what that was. So can you say that again? So no, that's right. That's right. It was me, not you.
No, it's definitely me. It's such a grey area that I over talk to try and help people understand how grey it is. So it doesn't help. So if you are on furlough leave, you are not working.
Yeah.
So you are already on a type of leave from work because you are on furlough leave. So some employment solicitors are saying, if you're already on one type of leave, you can't then take another type of leave as well. So for like sickness, for example, if you're on furlough leave, you can't also be on sick leave because you're not required to work. You don't need to report that you're sick, and you don't then need to be transferred onto statutory sick leave because you're already on furlough. You're not required to attend work. So the same thing kind of applies for holiday. This is in some employment solicitors' minds, saying you don't have to take holiday. You shouldn't take holiday because you're already on one type of leave.
Okay.
However, other employment solicitors are saying you should encourage your employees to take leave, top up their salary, get the leave out of the way before you come back to work. And it doesn't matter that you're already on one type of leave, just use the other. And so it's
effectively, so effectively, we, if we're paying somebody the government statutory 80%, we could top that up and make it 100%, but insist that comes out of holiday. Is that what you were saying?
Yes. So there's two, like I said, there's two streams of advice. One is don't, one is do. And there's no clear guidance from the government yet as to which is the right way. We are saying to our clients, at least for this first period up until the first claims go through, we are saying don't use the holiday because we don't know whether that's going to be approved or not, and then that could cause you some issues when you're trying to reclaim your money. So keep it clean up until April 21st when you can claim for the first rebate. Then we'll probably know what's agreed and what's not, and then you can, if it continues, do what you want after that period. It just, for us, it just seems to be more sensible to take a cautious approach, but it doesn't mean that's the only way. It's just the way that we're suggesting. Laura, you had something, sorry.
So yeah, I was just saying, I think, did Mike suggest actually taking some leave before you furlough as well, whether that was an option to take the 2 weeks holiday and then furlough after that?
Well, yeah, so the member of staff in question had the next 2 weeks booked off holiday anyway. And then we decided that we would furlough staff. It's one of those things, you know, as a director, I wasn't quite aware of when she was taking a holiday. And we had a conversation around and said, okay, these are the 5 staff that are going onto furlough. And then it was like, well, I'm on holiday for those first 2 weeks anyway. So then what should our approach be? Essentially, because she's going to be on holiday anyway, because she's going to be on furlough. So do we make her take her 2 weeks holiday because she booked them, or is that a bit unreasonable on our part? And should we say, okay, well, you're on holiday anyway, you don't lose your 2 weeks holiday because we're furloughing you, so you're on holiday. It
wouldn't be a very nice time to take holiday, would it? Because you can't go out.
No. I mean, she booked it. She booked it obviously some weeks ago. She must have booked it some weeks ago before all this kicked off, and then it's like, so we said, yeah, that's fine, you can take that holiday, and now it's timed with the first. So I mean, I suspect that the morally correct thing to do is to let her keep her 2 weeks holiday in abeyance, and because she's on furlough, which is one of the options that Heidi mentioned. So I mean, I just wonder what's the right thing. I mean, there's a moral argument, and then there's also the argument of people storing up so much holiday that by the end of the year we will have no staff in because they're all taking holiday.
Yeah, and I think oddly for an HR person, my first thought in this situation is always finance. So not necessarily well-being, all the rest of it. Do you have the money in the bank to pay her yourself for holiday? Yes. Or do you want to just reclaim the furlough payment? And then when you've kind of gone through that decision point, will it help us survive longer if we reclaim 80%, don't pay anything top up, and will that help the business survive longer, and will that make sure that we can pay wages for a longer period of time? Once you've made that decision, then you say, right, well, do we feel like it's the right thing to top her up 20% by using a holiday, or do we think it's the right thing for her to keep her holiday for a time when she can use it? And then the third thing is, what mechanism are we going to put in place to manage our staff's holiday after? And once you've kind of answered those 3 questions, then I think you can answer the initial question. I think it's just a bit more complex. And I think, like I say, if you are happy to say Fridays, Mondays, or everybody can take an afternoon, or, you know, if you can manage your employees' holiday, and they should understand why you are doing that. And if you ask in advance, you have to give, in order to ask people to take a certain type of holiday, you have to ask double the amount of time in advance that they need to take. So if they're taking an afternoon, you need to ask a day earlier. So that's all the notice you need to give. So you can direct them on how they take their holiday. You don't, and also it's your right to approve or not the holiday that people request. So just because people want to take all their holiday in June, July, August, September, you don't have to allow that. And especially under the existing circumstances, it would be very difficult for them to challenge that.
It seems reasonable to say, you know, we discussed that the finance side of it isn't such a critical thing. So but it does seem reasonable to say, okay, you take the holiday, you're being furloughed, so that's fine. You can keep the 2 weeks, but and actually, we're going to reduce the amount of holiday this year by the amount of time you've been furloughed, but you can carry that holiday forward into following years. So next year you get more holiday than you would do normally because you've carried some over. That seems like a reasonable approach. I quite like that idea. So, okay, thank you.
Are you saying you have to let the people, those 20 statutory days, they have to be allowed to take those at the moment, between the period when they return from furlough and the end of the leave year, but anything in addition to that you can carry over if you can't otherwise accommodate it.
So the normal rules are that everybody is legally required to have 20 days holiday from work in a period of time, and that's under the Working Time Directive. This year they've made an amendment to the Working Time Directive to say that holiday, the holiday that you're giving, can carry over for up to 2 years. So they haven't actually said you still have to allow them to take 20 days this year. So I think they're going to be a little bit loose around that requirement for this year, because kind of all bets are off. Everyone's had a month or so off on furlough anyway, so they've had their kind of rest from work. So I think they'll be a bit more relaxed about using that 20 days in 2020, but you have to still allow them to have that holiday, so it will carry over to next year if they don't use it this year. I hope that makes sense.
And then again to 2022 as well.
Yes, if they don't use it next year, you can still then carry it over.
Can I ask a question about how much you take employees' preferences into account? We had a situation where a decision was made as to who would be furloughed and who would remain, and somebody who we wanted to remain working has effectively refused and said, no, I want to be furloughed. And it's a difficult situation because we're trying to treat all employees fairly, trying to take their preferences into account where possible, fully understand that ultimately it is the employer whose business decision it is as to whether you furlough someone or you don't. But in the face of an employee saying, I'm refusing to work, you're going to have to furlough me, what are the choices, or what is the process later on down the line if that employee continues to want to be furloughed within the time that you can actually furlough, and effectively refuses to work? Because it's obviously a delicate situation. You're trying to, all the advice from the government seems to be your understanding if people are sick, your understanding if people need to self-isolate, all of that. So we don't really know what to do. With this particular employee, we've said, okay, fine, yeah, we can cope with the other employees. They're happy to cover the duties, we will furlough you. But when there's other members of staff saying, I really want to work, but I completely understand why you're furloughing me and I'll do it for the good of the business, against someone saying, I'm not working, I want to be furloughed. Yeah, how do you deal with that later on down the line?
There's a couple of things. I think the first one is based on your selection criteria. So if you're selecting people from the same pool, working out, so if everybody is a administrator, say, so if you've got 10 people with the same administrator job title, you've chosen half of that population to go on furlough and half not. The rationale for that decision making can leave it open for people to question. So if someone's saying, well, I just want to be furloughed, and someone's saying, I don't want to be furloughed, and depending on the selection criteria you've chosen, depends on the strength of the position you have to demand somebody's attendance. So I'll probably maybe talk to you about that part offline, if that's all right. I'll see if I can help in that. And because if somebody has the right to question why they've been chosen, and then you can take a less strong standpoint with them if they refuse. However, if it's a full pool, so everybody that's in reception, for example, is furloughed, but everybody who is in finance is not furloughed. People don't have the option. If everybody in finance is required to work, you don't really have the option to refuse, because you're saying, well, no, your job is necessary and your job is needed, and therefore we need you in. And in the furlough scheme, in the letters that we've created, it says that you don't have, if you are unreasonably refusing to attend work, then that's a disciplinary situation. So you wouldn't wait until the end of the period, you would just handle that situation now, because it becomes kind of almost too late. If you furloughed them for 3 months and then you say, hang on a minute, you didn't do what we asked, it's kind of almost too late, you need to take that action now. And remember, furlough is the precursor to redundancy. So if somebody is not eligible for furlough and refusing to work, you can take them down a disciplinary route and manage that situation. It's not a contractual choice to say, hey, hang on a minute, I want to not work. It's the business does not have enough money, and therefore we're invoking this type of situation. So you need to take it seriously. So you do have the option to take action against somebody not appropriately adhering to your furlough requirements, or to your work requirements, as basically that's work refusal. Just because furlough is available doesn't mean that you're eligible for it, and doesn't mean you're entitled to it. So somebody is refusing to attend work, and that's a normal employment law kind of management process, irrespective of whether furlough is there or not.
Right, okay. Thank you. Yeah, if we could catch up at some point after, that would be really good.
Fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Heidi, does it make a difference if, say, if somebody's vulnerable, say, for instance, they've got asthma or something like that, so they're more worried about getting the virus, do they automatically go on furlough?
No, so the people that are automatically eligible for furlough, and they are eligible for furlough irrespective of whether the business has a downturn in work or not, you can furlough these people even if you still have work, are those that are in this shielding category. So either they've received a letter from the government to say that they are at significant risk, or they are a family member in the household of a person who has received a letter that is at risk. So those people can go on furlough irrespective of whether the business has a downturn or not. So that's the person who's received the letter and their family members.
Yeah. Okay.
Those people that are vulnerable have been advised to socially distance, which is not automatically eligible for furlough. So you can choose to furlough them under your selection criteria if you are putting people on a furlough arrangement, but they are not automatically eligible, because those people could work from home, or they could, there's lots of different scenarios that could happen. They are not automatically eligible for furlough.
Can I ask what the minimum requirements are? We're just about to furlough our staff. Can you just briefly run through the minimum requirements we need to go through in order to make it a legitimate furlough, and so that we can then claim?
So, well, the minimum requirements are that there is no work for that person to do, and
yes.
If it weren't for the furlough scheme, you would be making them redundant. That's really the main criteria. They have to have been on the payroll on the 28th of February.
Yeah. What's our requirements to in order to demonstrate that we've done this correctly?
So there are no legal obligations to make sure that you've done it correctly. Okay. We have a selection criteria that we've been using just for transparency and fairness, in case anybody argues, because discrimination and all of those employment laws are still in place in this scenario. So we're saying, right, are you vulnerable? Do you have childcare issues? Are you able to work from home? Are you able to work unsupervised? Do you have the kind of capability on your laptop or whatever to work from home? Is there enough work? Are you experienced? Kind of go through kind of a list of different things to say, okay, if you tick all these boxes and you score 8, then you'll be higher up the list to be furloughed than someone who scores 2. So generally, managers, people with long tenure and people with the ability to work from home score low. People with shorter tenure who are less able to work unsupervised, who have other concerns, childcare, families, vulnerabilities, those kind of things, score a bit higher, and therefore they are more likely to be picked for furlough. But you can officially,
and then officially we just write them a letter and say, this is the case.
You still need consent, don't you? We still need consent if there's not a clause in the contract to do layoffs.
Yeah, so then once you've chosen your pool, you say to them, we would like to furlough you from this date. Please say that you are in agreement with this. This will last potentially up until May 31st or longer. We will write to you to confirm whether it's longer or not.
Do they need to confirm that they've accepted it then?
Yes.
We need an email back from them saying we accept this?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, even if you have a contractual layoff clause, the government are suggesting that consent is the best way to go. But you could even ask for volunteers. So selection criteria or not, you can ask people to volunteer. Generally, you'd maybe have too many people volunteering, so then you'd have to do a reverse selection. So it's probably better to kind of do a quick tick list, say, right, and I'm happy to share. We've put the selection criteria together, and we've got a letter, and I'm happy to share those with you guys for free. We're not charging for coronavirus related activity because it just feels a bit morally wrong, to be honest. So I'm also not the business owner, so that makes it much easier for me to give things away for free. So happy to share if anyone would like those.
How much can you take salary into account? Because clearly the more someone is being paid, the more it's going to cost business, and therefore in one view the more attractive that person is to furlough. Can you take that into account, or should you take that into account?
I think it's a difficult one because, like I say, all the employment legislation is still in place, and people in certain populations tend to sometimes form a certain demographic. So you don't want to be seen to kind of pick people based on a demographic, and salary can sometimes be an indicator of that. So it's potentially a dodgy one. Also, you've kind of got the motivation and morale kind of issue to deal with on the back of that, that if you're reducing people's pay to 80% or the 2,500 cap that would normally be getting a lot more than that, there may be a morale and kind of engagement issue on the back of that as well.
Thanks.
I think we've got about 5 minutes left, guys, if anybody else has got any questions.
We can keep going.
Have we got another?
Yeah, we can keep going, that's fine.
We've got another 10 minutes, yeah?
No, just keep going.
Okay.
Ask away. Jared, did you have any questions? Because I know you...
Sorry, not me.
Weren't you?
Moi?
I know you were emailing me, which obviously I passed on to Heidi and to Laura.
Yeah, and I think you've answered. I think you've answered it now.
Brilliant.
I think. You were the conduit.
Yeah,
I can't even remember what the question was.
There's still HR on the call, Jared.
Yeah, I forgot. Sorry. I even forget what the question was. It was a good one as well, wasn't it?
It was about someone that you were.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember?
Shall I ask it?
Yes.
Yeah, go on, Jared. Ask it.
Okay, so in order to be furloughed, my understanding is in order to be furloughed, an employee must have been an employee on the 28th of February. So what about those that weren't? Heidi, I run a recruitment company, and this came to light because we had found a position for a candidate who was due to start on the 30th of March, left his employer on the Friday before, and the company he was joining has said that we still want to take you on, but we can't take you on March the 30th. So he's kind of in no man's land now, and kind of wondered what support was available for somebody like him.
Yeah, and it's a sad little window. It's a very small window, but it's a very sad window that I'm actually coming across quite a few people that are falling in. So the old employer can be requested to take them back on for a period of furlough and just put them on the furlough scheme and then take them back off at the end. And that is the guidance coming from the government that says that is actually an acceptable practice. But they have to agree, and they have to pay the person and then get the rebate. So they have to have the money available to do that. And that's probably not in their cash flow management and all the rest of it. So it's a complex request, and they don't have to, but they can be asked to re-employ for the period of furlough. You could ask the new employer to reconsider and then put them automatically on furlough so that they at least receive that 80%. But again, they're probably looking at their cash flow and how they're delaying their costs and things.
Sorry, Heidi, can I just can I question on that? The new employer, would they be able to, because of this 28th of February thing?
No.
Oh, sorry, no. Yeah, sorry. No, that was a silly one.
I've got you, don't worry.
Yeah.
I've got you.
And then there are two other options, which is universal credit or temporary work in one of the industries that's hiring, like delivery drivers and things like that. Sadly, those are the only things.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone got any other questions?
Not about HR, Natalie, but the small business rate relief grant. Have you got any information as from the local authorities as to whether or not they will contact us or you first?
They are sending out forms, Sarah, aren't they, at the moment?
You'll get a letter in. Sorry, Roger, just looking at the post actually, see if any's come in. You'll get a letter to here, and then you just need the reference number and the rateable value to fill in the form and send it back. So as soon as we get those in, we'll let you know.
So will we have to sort of come in and
put some in?
Yeah, we're putting them in your office, Roger, because you've got
Right.
we're going to get lots come in, and we don't want them to go missing in the post or anything like that if we send them out.
Okay.
We know what they look like because we know what the envelopes look like. So we'll put it in your office when they come in. Obviously, they're going to be coming in sporadically from now, I think.
And then you will supply the information about the points which we have to answer on the form.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions or?
Yeah, I've got another one. I just thought of it. So we have support in the guise of furlough for PAYE employees, and then they also brought in the scheme for the self-employed. Can somebody just give me a little bit more clarification as to the definition of the self-employed? You know, we have a lot of our temporary worker candidates work through their own limited companies. You know, they're a director. There's just a personal service company. There's no other employees involved, but that's just the kind of the mechanism that they use. Is that enough to deem them as self-employed and therefore get the benefit?
Going to be for you, Chris, I would say.
Yeah. Jared, there's an email I did, I think Nat might have it, that I did two basically after the financial reviews. One was on when the Chancellor stood up on Friday the 20th of March, and then the next one was on the 26th of March when he changed the rules, and then he brought in something called Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. Now, Self-Employment Income Support Scheme basically only relates to self-employed people, and what a lot of people don't quite realise is whether they're self-employed or not. So if you have a limited company and you are a director of that company and your only income is either as a director's salary or a dividend, and you have no other income, then you're not self-employed. So the easiest way is if you check, you must have a self-assessment tax return, you must complete it. And if you look at box 2 and box 3 on page TR2 of that tax return, if you tick it to say you are self-employed or you're a partner in a business, then the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme may apply to you. But the chances are that if you are a director of a limited company and you've got a dividend, then it probably won't, because if that's your only source of income, you're not self-employed.
Just on Zoom, can I come in?
And for those people, Chris, for those people where it's likely not to apply, you know, they're a director of their own limited company, one man band, one person band, you know, takes dividends. You know, is there any kind of avenue for those people?
Well, I mean, a lot of people are saying that sort of it's a bit like your other question, whether this has actually slipped between a few stools. So the chances are that if you've set up your own limited company, you may take a small salary, but the chances are that salary will be below the national insurance threshold. So you probably won't have a PAYE scheme. So if you haven't got a PAYE scheme, you're not eligible to get the job retention scheme. You're also not self-employed, so you're not eligible for the two main schemes. Now, the question then is, well, what else have you got to help you? So the chances are, if you're taking dividends, and that means that the company must have distributable profits to pay the dividend, i.e. it must have a corporation tax liability. So the corporation tax liability is paid 9 months and 1 day after the end of the accounting period. So something that may help you is you can go into time to pay. Now, the government have always had this time to pay scheme, and they've actually set up a dedicated helpline. So you can actually ring that on, it's 0800 0159 559. And what you do is you tell the HM Revenue Customs that you'd like to enter the time to pay scheme for your corporation tax liability. So that would help delay that. It won't get rid of it, it will just delay the payment. And then you come to a payment agreement with them. Now, these are just negotiated individually. So you tell them your circumstances, and hopefully they'll agree that you just delay the payment of the corporation tax. The other thing is that if you've got a dividend, then the chances are you've also got an income tax liability. So the government have also brought something in to help you with that. So the tax return for the year ended 5th of April 2019 should have been filed by the latest 31st of January 2020. And on that date, you had made the final tax payment for the year ended 5th of April 19, plus the first payment on account for the year ended 5th of April 2020. Your second tax payment would be due on 31st July 2020, and the government has said you can delay that payment until 31st of January 2021. So someone in that situation, there's not a lot, but time to pay for corporation tax and the deferral of the payment of income tax may help. Like I say, there are, in both instances, they're just deferring the payment. So you will have to make the payment at some stage, but it will help your cash flow.
When did you say the delay was until, Chris, the income tax, the second payment on account, which is due on the 31st of July, we can defer that until when?
The payment due on 31st July 2020 is delayed until 31st of January 2021.
Okay, and do we have to apply for that?
No, it's automatic.
Fine, thank you.
You just make sure you don't pay it on 31st July.
Yeah.
A bit like with VAT, it may be, back to Jared's question, it may be that that limited company had a VAT liability as well. So in order to help with that, the government have said that any VAT liability that falls due between the 20th of March 2020 and the 30th of June 2020, you can delay that payment until the 31st of March 2021. So you nearly have 12 months. But the thing you've got to bear in mind is you still have to file your VAT return. So it's really important that you file it so they know what the liability is. It's just that you're not paying your liability. And the other thing is that some people have a direct debit linked to the filing of the VAT return. You need to cancel your direct debit for that quarter so it doesn't automatically go out of your bank account. So come March next year, you will have that liability to pay as well as your VAT liability in the normal course of events that will fall during that quarter.
Could be a big lump.
Yeah, well, the same as income tax. Your income tax, you're going to have to pay the liability due on 31st January 2020 plus 2021, sorry, plus the liability that you've deferred from 31st July 2020. So in both instances, they will be big lumps.
That's useful. Thanks, Chris.
Okay.